Dan Kamen, Old Chief Woodenhead, from Creepshow 2, Yatta Hay. You're listening to Without Your Head Horror Radio.
All right, and welcome to the Station of Decapitation Without Your Head on Monday. This is Nasty Neal, and I am joined by my guest this evening. He's an author, he's an actor. I think he's going to be an all-around good guy. We have Daniel Beer on the line.
Hey, Neil, thanks for having me aboard. I love that. What was your line about decapitation, how you introduced it? What?
The Station of Decapitation.
That is great. Oh, that is great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, nope. That's great.
No, just, by the way, if people want to call in tonight, it's going to be 508-413-3144. If you call in, just wait for us to get to you, and we'll get to you. Now, we'll talk about Creepshow 2 and everything, but we want to let everyone know that you have a book out there, and it's really cool. It's kind of like, sort of like the GoFundMe and the crowdfunding in a way, because it's out there, and if people support it, it will get published. But instead of just giving money to it, you actually just pre-order the book.
Yeah, that's right. It's on Inkshares. My book is called The Silence of Remembering, and once I get 750 pre-orders, then it goes into publication. So it's kind of like a hybrid crowdfunding publishing type thing, but you get a return on your investment. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't get published, then you get your money back. It's not like those other crowdfunding where you're not going to get anything, basically. And also you get, I believe you get, pardon me, $5 off when you order my book through Inkshares.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you also get, for the $20 pre-order, it includes a signed paperback copy of the book and an ebook too. So you get both for that $20, and I believe then it's $5 off, so it's $15. Because Inkshare believes, like, if you're reading at home, that you should be able to seamlessly, when you go on the road, be able to read Silence of the Remembering as an e-reader too. So it's pretty cool. So, and yeah, I don't get published unless my fan base and show up for me and order the book. It does not happen for me, and that's who I've been reaching out to. And I just think that the horror fan base is more than just one genre. You know, I think they probably have a variety of taste. You know, so and I think that they're intelligent and they're sensitive, and I think that they read and all of that. I just don't have any kind of limiting thoughts on the horror community, and I did a horror con, and I met a lot. You know, obviously that community. I was very impressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before you went to the horror convention, did you have any preconceived notions? Like, maybe I don't want to do this. Like, you thought people would be a certain way, but it turned out to be different.
No. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like it's pretty eclectic group, and it's kind of like Halloween. People are dressed up, and I was actually very moved by the whole thing. I was very moved that people would come up to me and say, "I've seen Creepshow 2 50 times," and they're quoting it to me. You know, I mean, it was just very, very moving, and you're kind of isolated in Hollywood, and you realize that Hollywood, it forgets why it's making movies, or it does know why it's making movies, to make money, obviously. But there's one key thing that they don't, pardon me, I'm going to be coughing here a little bit. There's one key thing that they fail to realize is that they have to emotionally connect. You know, and that's also what led me going, like, I'm going to really reach out to the horror community with my novel here, because I think they'll emotionally connect with the characters that I've written. And I don't think it has to be just, horror for the horror community to connect to it. But connection is it. If people don't connect with, a movie or book or something, emotionally connect to it, then it's not going to happen. So, and I think once they read it and it gets published, then they'll connect to it. I mean, uh, people have to order it and read it, obviously.
But yeah, that's a key. I think in any type of storytelling is being emotionally connected. Like um, The Walking Dead, for example, zombies are cool and everything, but people are connected to the characters. I mean, people like get emotional. They get really upset, like if one of their favorite characters dies on that, or Game of Thrones, or any of
Well,
those things.
you're touching on something that I learned that I didn't learn. I just made me realize again that HorrorCon is that people like characters and stories,
Mm-hmm.
and you just can't throw blood on a wall. And I think that lots of times in Hollywood that they underestimate uh, the audience and just think, we'll just put enough CGI and enough blood on the wall and people will show up. And I did a Q&A, and that was one of the recurring themes that came up with the audience was like, well, why aren't they making movies with really great stories? You know? Um, so yeah, you're absolutely touching on a valid point there.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I think a lot of those kind of movies, they may be big when they first come out, but they don't have a lasting effect on people. Like people aren't going to talk about them, 10 or
yeah,
20
well,
years
yeah,
later.
that's the connecting to it emotionally. You know, and the horror community, they look like goth. They were dressed up, and I can see where somebody would just totally underestimate this community because the way that they dress or look and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Which is
Yeah.
utterly ridiculous. I mean, I wrote a, it's a, fiction or literary fiction. I kind of renamed it, and it's fictional memoir because a lot of it is based on me and my experience. And I don't underestimate, the readers or the horror community about reading my characters in my book. I think everybody suffered loss. I think people feel that when somebody passes away that they're still with them. And that's what my character Twigs is. She's in purgatory and she's still with her older brother. Um, and she's been there for a while and she has to help her brother, confront his guilt over the night that she died by getting hit by a drunk driver when they were walking home from school. And if he doesn't get over this, then she won't get to heaven, and her family will not, come together. And there's also a family secret the night of her death. So I think it's relatable to people, and I think people feel like somebody is always with them. I think people talk to themselves a lot. I know I do, you know.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of the premise. And I did something I thought interesting about purgatory because I was, the research I did said I kind of flipped it. They say purgatory is for the dead. It's where the dead go, and they have to stay there until they clean themselves of their sins before they can go to heaven. And I thought, no, that's where the living are when someone close to them dies, and that they have to clean themselves of their own guilt or their own sins or their grieving process before they can let go of them and let them go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the themes, and I flipped it, and I think people can relate to that. I don't think you need to be a literary professor to kind of understand that and get that and feel that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's maybe why they invented purgatory. You know, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It's really for the living. It's if you switch a lot of things in where you read about hell and everything, and you read about stuff, and you switch it from dead to living, it has a whole different meaning. So. And I tend to turn things upside down. So,
Mm-hmm. You said it's a personal story, like so what really inspired the two characters, the two main characters?
well, I've had ups and downs, right? And I've had I've just been through a lot of ups and downs. You could say, you could say, trauma, and I had PTSD. I do have it, but I've had to really work on it. Um, and I just put all of that into this book. Um, uh, like at one point he gets into thinking about cutting himself. Um, uh, and he has a dissociative identity disorder where you split off from yourself, which happens to be like his sister in purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you deal with things. And I've just gone through some stuff that's been, really hellacious. And I put it into this book, into, symbolism and metaphors and stuff like that. But I guess the thing that really, it's not like one trigger. I know it's kind of, part of it is based on when I did Dying Young with Julia Roberts. And then there's just, there's other parts of it, when I've met publicists, when I've been to Hollywood parties and stuff. It's probably just more of a coping mechanism for me. And also, a big part of it is that I want to connect with other people. And like, hey, does anybody else feel like this? Has anybody else gone through a meltdown in their life? Where you go, I don't know if I'm going to get through to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like Holden Caulfield in Catcher in the Rye, or Bright Lights, Big City, where it's a cathartic book.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully when people read it, they'll have their own catharsis in a way.
Mm-hmm. So writing it in a way was your way of getting out of your own purgatory.
Very good. Yeah. Absolutely. I just had extreme things happen to me. I mean, I just, and I'm just very sensitive to it. Like I had a short story published in a really good literary magazine called 34th Parallel, and I kind of based it on a conversation I had with Patty Duke in the makeup trailer when I was doing a movie with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just such an interesting conversation. It was just like, I don't think anybody has ever, been in a makeup trailer. Do you know what I mean? And really written something like this. There's just stuff like that happens all the time working in this industry. And also I find a lot of books, a lot of things written about Hollywood are total cliches. They just really dehumanize people. Just everybody is a cardboard cutout.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not my experience. And that's why I also wanted to write it. It was like, it's not everybody's like what you read in Us Magazine or see on TMZ. It's not like the cliche, like Patty Duke. I wrote that story, people say, oh, the aging actress and everything. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. It was very, I didn't treat her that way,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that kind of bothered me too about books about Hollywood and the way that they're written and stuff written, and they're always just kind of nasty and stuff, Like there's a character, he's my lead character is on the brink of becoming a breakout star, and he's working with one of the biggest actresses, and yeah, she's kind of a deviant stuff. But then there's a moment where she says something to the camera, and he asked the director. He said, "What did she say?" And the director said, "Love me." And it just humanizes her. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing. I think people will get a totally different perspective reading The Silence of Remember, because it's written by an insider. I'm an insider.
Mm-hmm.
About what's it like to be on a movie set, hitting your marks. Some of the Hollywood parties and the stuff I've seen. And what I did was, my lead character, Alex, he's a moral person dealing in this immoral world,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's an interesting conflict as he's trying to find his compass,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a succession of events that he finally has his epiphany. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you're reading it and you're going like, geez, if he just would do this or do that, but he's not aware of it until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
so it's also funny. I mean, they're just funny. I write about doing a sex scene. It's just funny. You know what I mean? I've had to do,
Uh-huh.
a few of them. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? So I just think it's fun that way. It's a real insider's book.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, big theme that you said is purgatory and heaven. Are you a spiritual person yourself?
I guess not in the classic sense, but you know, more in the individual sense about spirituality.
Hmm.
I like the themes and the metaphors in the Bible or Judaism or Buddha and everything like that. So they're great themes to work with in writing. But spiritual, absolutely. I think everybody's spiritual.
Hmm. There's in the press release and on your website. There's a line I thought was really interesting, and it says one of the themes was how does a person integrate their dark side? And I thought that would be something even before
Why
you
do you
talk.
think that was interesting?
Um, because I think that's something I could relate to, and I would think a lot of people listening to the show, even before you came on and talked about horror fans relating to that. I think it would be something a lot of horror fans could relate to, and it's
How do you
not.
relate to it?
Well, I think everyone does have a dark side, and some people don't want to. They want to suppress it, and instead of suppressing this, what you said, integrate it to actually use it in your life, not to get rid of it or not pay attention to it and think that's a bad side of you, but to actually realize that is part of you, who you are, and to use it in your life. Like this show, a lot of it is some of it's silly and stuff, but there's some dark stuff on the show, and there's dark stuff in my head, and this is an outlet for it, for in a way. And then maybe this book is the same way for you, or in acting or anything. I just thought it was interesting.
You're nailing it. You absolutely nailed one of the themes of the silence of remembering, and what I talked about, how the traumas that I've been through and the up and down type of stuff, and the character's guilt and everything like that, and the dark side. And you are absolutely nailing it. How everybody, you said everybody has a dark side, and about how to use it, but you're very curious about how to integrate it,
Hmm.
and that's what but you use the key word, suppressing it. And that's what I see, and that's what he's doing. He's just suppressing this nightmare that happened to him,
Hmm.
and the secret between him and his mom that happened, that occurred that night, the night of his sister dying in a car accident. And that integration is what makes you complete. And if you don't have that integration, then you're not going to move ahead. And I think that for me, that integration was a grieving process, or bereavement, which is which is a postponed grieving process. Um, and that's what the character's dealing with, and things are triggering what happened that night. He has to go back for the 10-year memorial of what happened that night, and him becoming a star and worrying that people are going to find out about what happened, that people are going that people are, he has this secret, this family secret. Will they ask questions about that? So yeah, that dark side, and that's what I hope that the readers in the horror community, that they will identify with in the silence of remembering, is that dark side,
Hmm.
and everybody has that dark side. And you're right about using it. It's if you don't if you don't integrate that, if you don't deal with it, and you keep suppressing it, then all that's going to happen are problems going to happen, drug addiction and this and that. And that's what, he's having a meltdown because he can't integrate it.
Hmm.
And his sister who's in purgatory, his little sister who's with him the whole time, watching this and trying to help him to integrate this. So that's one of the key themes. And it's a ghost story. He's haunted. All great stories are ghost stories, and they're haunted by something.
Hmm.
The horror films are just, you see the monster. But in the type of story that I wrote, you can't see the monster. It's an emotional monster. It's a person's dark side.
Hmm.
You know.
Hmm.
Um, so Stephen King. I said this in another interview. He openly admitted that he had a really traumatic childhood, and that's why he writes horror, and that's what he's writing about. You know,
Hmm.
I think a lot of people that are writers. That's what they're doing. It's their dark side. So
Hmm.
that's why I think if people order it and they read it, I think they're going to be able to relate to it, no matter whether you're man or woman, or you're 20 or 30. It's exactly what you were talking about. Is that dark side, and it was something that I saw people, and myself included, going, why the hell is this person doing this? Why is this person have a cocaine addiction? Why is this person sabotaging themselves? Why am I getting in my way? Why am I doing this? And I'm going, and I said, you're just not dealing with something, and the thing you're not dealing with is the dark side of you.
Hmm. And
You know,
yeah, it was interesting you said about a monster, but you just can't see it. And then you brought up cocaine addiction, and people always call those things addictions. You're fighting your demons, and
right?
that's a demon that you don't actually see, but it is a demon within you that affects your life.
Right. I mean, those stories. The Superman stories, those things. You see the monster, you see the demon. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But in this kind of these and what I wrote and other stories, I'm sure you can name movies where somebody has to overcome their own personal demons and their own personal monster, basically.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean it's a horror book. I mean, all like I said, all great stories, they're haunted by something. Gatsby is haunted by something. A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. He's haunted by the death of his first love. You know,
Hmm.
Holden Caulfield's haunted by the death of his brother, and they're usually death. I think Hemingway say all true stories end in a death. Look at all the Stephen King stuff. Look at. I mean, so
Hmm.
so
And
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
you mentioned about Stephen King's childhood. I always imagined that he must have had some really bad bullies because that's a theme in a lot of Stephen King books is like really violent bullies.
Or maybe his mom or dad was a bully.
That's true. Because
I mean,
doesn't have to be yeah like the literal
I'm
sense of
sure
it.
he was bullied at school. Everybody's been bullied at school.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, everybody has. I don't think that's everybody. School's brutal that way.
Yeah.
Some worse than others. It's terrible.
That I read that you taught writing at a state prison.
Yeah. That's what I was. I mean, this isn't like the first time I've written something. I did a weekend screenwriting seminar at Lancaster State Prison. A screenwriting friend of mine invited me up there, and I actually started writing monologues in acting class. And I didn't tell my teacher at first, and then he said, "Who wrote it?" And I said, "I did." He goes, "Well, keep at it." And like I said, I got a short story published. I was in the UCLA Advanced Fiction workshop. So, and a funny story about the Lancaster prison, and you know that in prison, they change the codes to get into prison every day because we had to get into the inner yard. We had to go through 3 security things.
Hmm.
So I went up there one day, I went up there the next day, and all the codes were different. And my friend was like, "Let's get out of here." And I said, No, I want to get in. And I'm probably the only person that's ever broken into prison. He even said, "I can't believe you got us in to the inner yard to teach his class." It was so much fun for me.
Now, um, now the people you talked to, that you taught, they were prisoners.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, they were on the yard. Oh yeah, they
Now,
were. Yeah,
now, did your view on prisoners and prison themselves did that change doing the course?
I really didn't. I didn't really have a view on it.
Hmm.
I guess it just gave me a reality of it, which a lot of them are mentally ill. A lot of them, they all say that they're innocent. But what really hit me when I was standing there is the finite, if that's the right word, the absolute end of it when you're in jail. Like I just looked up at the barbed wire and I just went, I never want to be in a place like this. I just went like that's it. There's no freedom. There's no nothing. It's very strange to be standing in a real security prison and looking up at those fences and the barbed wire. You
Hmm.
know, and you go, that's what really hit me was the finality of it. That's the word. The finality of it.
Yeah. I guess that's a reason why they was scared straight for kids, bad kids.
Oh no, it's if you get in there, it's absolutely, absolutely.
Do you keep in contact with anybody from there? Like, did you
I
ever?
just know. I just went up and taught for
Okay.
2 days. It was I think they probably cut the program. It was a program that if inmates get out, if they have something to latch onto, like one of them actually sold some screenplays and it kept them from going back in.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know what I mean? But they probably, I think they cut the program.
Hmm. That's too bad.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. So.
Hmm. Now, we'll have the link up on the website, but it's inkshares.com and /book/ the silence of remembering, and it's got dash between all that. It'd be a lot easier if you just either Google that or just click on the link up on. We'll have.
Yeah, and there's the first chapters on there, so you kind of get a sense of it. And also, if you go to my fan page, I've posted a bunch of stuff on there, about it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's very easy to order. I asked some people too. They said it's really easy, and they felt like they're a part of something. And the books are really high quality. I did my research, and I talked like the Adam, one of the VPs of the company. I talked with him, and just the paper quality, just everything is really high quality.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have done it. So just so people know,
yeah.
you know.
I like they get the ebook too because for me, if I'd it'd be nice to keep the signed copy, nice, and then you can just read the ebook without worrying about messing up the pages or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, people. Well, I went to HorrorCon and they wanted signed stuff, so you get a signed copy. I would imagine that it would actually appreciate in value. You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you went to that horror convention, no, do you yourself collect anything?
No, I actually I'm uh, what is it when you collect your own stuff? I actually am
Like a pack rat?
no. Because on my fan page, I have all these photos I took from Creepshow 2.
Uh-huh.
I like to collect stuff from like when I do a job and everything
Yeah.
like that. Um, and it's amazing those photos I have. I think those are the only real photos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no other photos of that thing. And I said, thank God I like, what is it, remembering or something like that? I can't, I can't think of the right word for it when you. So thank God I took all these photos, and I have it all on my fan page. I posted them all, and everybody loves all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, because that would have been before the day when they really, now with so many DVDs and Blu-rays, it would be like commonplace, I think, to record so much behind the scenes. But then it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, I mean, I have. I have 5 photos from the press from the person they had the onset photographer there, but I took just a ton of photos of it. I'm kind of pissed I didn't with Point Break, but memorabilia. That's what it is. I take my own memorabilia from stuff. Like I had the folder for the Point Break press thing release. And Point Break Live did a night where they honored me, and I had like 2 of them. So I signed it, gave it to them, and they just flipped. They just couldn't believe it. And so they have 1 of 2 of those. I mean, it's got to be worth something. So that's what I do. I'm so pissed. I don't know if I gave it to my brother, but I had the Creepshow 2 screenplay, and I think I had it all autographed.
Oh, that'd been awesome.
Yeah, like my brother has Point Break and Dying Young with everybody's autograph on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have some TV scripts that I've done with people's autograph.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to do that. I still have all the reviews for Creepshow 2 in copies because they send it to us. I forget the company that did it. And I have that, and I think that's all I have for memorabilia with that.
Mm-hmm. How did you get involved in Creepshow 2?
My agent got me the audition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about Stephen King, and they couldn't find anybody to play my part. They went to New York and I think Chicago and L.A. And I was I was originally submitted for the Deke character, and then my agent called me up. He said, "You got to come up to the office." And I went up, and he walked me into the casting office. It was crazy, just crazy. And he said, "We're not walking out of here until Daniel gets an audition." So, and then that's how I got it. And that agent, my agent, passed away in the early '90s. And that's what I'll say. I think when you said like what made me want to write this book, it said I've had a lot of death in my life at a very early age, from like the age of 18 to 24. It was just overwhelming. So, you know, obviously I'm writing a book about a guy trying to deal with death and being able to grieve about it, because I didn't even know how to grieve about it at the time. You know, so there's your answer to what triggered or what made me want to write the book. You know, 20 minutes later, I get to it here.
That's all right. I would assume you were close to your agent at that, because you would have been young and someone helping you in the business.
Yeah, he was like my older. He died of AIDS. He was like my older brother. You know, and I don't really have any. I don't have any family support, so it was a huge blow to me, an absolute huge blow. But that's how I got Creepshow. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about the first one. It was just a gig, and I was down to $20 when I left, and I gave it to Paige Hanna at the airport too. She wanted to buy some stuff.
The actual audition, was it any particular scene in the movie?
I just remember sitting there with Michael Gornick and one of the producers, and it was about, I just remember I had to be looking at the blob, and the blob was coming. I'm sitting in the chair, and I just remember Michael said, well, you know, there's going to be this huge blob, there's going to be this huge thing, and I just said, well, it's not in the room, so I have to create something else to make me get there. Yeah, I think I was 18 or 19. Yeah. And that was it.
What was Michael Gornick like? I actually heard him on the commentary track, and I have to say that he has a really good voice.
Yeah, he was like my dad. I just love the guy. I mean, what an outstanding guy. He just had my back, and he's tremendous. What he did with that movie, all the delays, all the problems. I had health problems. You know, it's starting to come out about how I had hypothermia, and they had to shut down production, and he got that thing in. I think he got it in a couple days early and on budget and everything. It's a miracle what he did. Just a miracle.
So how did you get hypothermia? It was in the water, I assume?
Yeah, that was a freshwater lake, and it was like 50-some degrees. And my core temperature dropped. They had to shut down production. And they still wanted to work me. And Michael Gornick stood up to the producers and said, I'll leave this movie if you keep working him. So I had to be hospitalized for a couple days. Or I had to go to a doctor, and I had to be, you know, stay in my room and do these special baths, and they had to wait till my core temperature got up, and then I finished the movie with a paramedic, and I had to get oxygen and everything. So I gave, you know, I almost died shooting that thing. So I'm asking the horror community to rally around my book Silence of Remembering and order it. I figure I gave my I have a permanent cold weather and injury that I gave to the horror community, so all of myself. I'm not kidding. I do it permanent. It's a permanent cold weather injury. I get my core temperature drops. I get real cold now if I'm if I'm in the ocean and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, those are permanent. If you get hypothermia and like an extremity, those are permanent. Wow. Yeah. That's what my brother told me because he got it in the Army.
I did not realize that. It's crazy. So.
Yeah, when you watch The Raft, I am fighting hypothermia, and I am before they roll camera, my teeth are chattering, and I'm trying to not shiver. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. And I do 2 or 3 swimming scenes. They put oxygen on me, and I'd fall asleep for 2 hours, and they wake me up, and I jump out of the boat, and I do it again, and then I'd say, well, Michael, I can do more because I'm not feeling anything. And he said, no, we can't do that. That's not good.
Yeah. No. Now, when you're filming the movie, because, you know, when you watch it, it's basically just a raft. What's like the crew like there? Like are there several boats, one boat?
Yeah, there was a few. I have some, like I said, I have some really great. I have some aerial photos. Like somebody was up on a. I think I made somebody go up on a scaffolding with my camera and take some
Oh, really?
photos. And I actually have photos where from above,
Hmm.
and you can see the whole thing on my fan page. So it's really cool. Yeah, there's boats going out. There's the raft, and I think maybe they built another raft type dinghy type thing. Um, Never shoot anything on water. It's the worst
Uh-huh.
environment to shoot on. And we were just out on a lake. It wasn't like we were on an ocean.
Mhm.
Also, I got so cold they had to keep throwing water on me to match the shot, and it
Right.
was like really windy. And they're and they're throwing 50-degree water on me. Oh, it was crazy, man.
Uh-huh. How
It,
many days shoot was it?
I think it was supposed to be like 2 weeks, but it ended up being a month
Oh,
because
wow.
of all the stuff that happened.
Hmm. That,
You know, so yeah, it was nuts,
uh-huh.
just nuts.
Yeah. Well, there's like the old saying, ever work with children or animals or in the water, I think. So.
Yeah, Spielberg had it much worse.
Uh-huh.
But Spielberg goes, yeah, I don't like
Yeah,
to
for
watch
Jaws.
Jaws because of all the memories.
Uh-huh.
But I kind of laugh about it because I can't tell you, I just can't even begin. It was so hard for me to shoot that thing. And it was so hard. And thank God I had Michael Gornick and my agent because there was all kinds of stuff. And I was just a kid.
Hmm.
And I know everybody enjoys the movie, but it was physically brutal to
Yeah.
do. And thank God I'm an athlete, so I got through it.
Hmm.
So, and also I had the less body fat, so my core temperature was the
I see. Yeah.
lowest out of all.
Hmm. Yeah. Jaws was filmed not far from me. I'm on Cape Cod, and it was filmed
Oh, cool.
in the islands there. But now, if you watch the movie, I don't know if you watch it or if you watch it since you made it. But when you watch it, can you see it as just a movie, or do you watch it as and just think of the experience of making it?
Um, yeah, it's funny. Before I went to HorrorCon, I actually because I haven't seen it in forever. I said
Hmm.
I better do my research. I like to do my research before I do things. So I watched it. It's I write about this. There's a section in Silence in the Room, remembering where I really am able to put it in words what it's like. He goes to the screening of his movie, the premiere of his movie. Um, it's kind of like looking at a yearbook. You're not really you're remembering your life and kind of what led up to that moment and what went on the set. Um, I'm not too like taken by watching myself.
Hmm.
Um, and if I do watch it, I watch it real objectively about like, okay, I got that scene right, the beats of the scene, the subtext of the scene, what the character wants, or I go, oh shit, I missed that. That's a moment I missed. That scene shouldn't have been played that way. Stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, when it comes to watching like the movie, I kind of watch it maybe more in a technical sense, seeing what the director did.
Hmm.
And when you're shooting it, you have no idea how the hell it's going to look like. Uh, so yeah, I kind of use in my book that as a framework. It's kind of it starts him going to shoot this movie and it ends at the premiere of the movie,
Hmm.
and it's kind of framed within that, which I think is it's a great journey to go on with a character to kind of go through that, and that process of what an actor goes through when you're in a big movie and all the meetings and just all the stuff and the way people talk to you and just everything um, and it's not in a cliche way like everybody thinks it is. So when I watched Creepshow 2, I was really impressed with the storytelling actually.
Hmm.
um, he sets up the relationships with all of us within the first 30 seconds or a minute.
Hmm.
There's a gesture I do, and I noticed it in the back seat of the car. I think I touch Jeremy's hand, and then Paige sees it, and Satterfield's oblivious to it, and it shows the relationship of all the characters without having to explain anything. And I think that's what they were saying at the HorrorCon about, like character development and everything, and that's where you should show and not tell.
Mm-hmm.
If whenever you can do that, and that's what I do. In my book, it's showing, it's not telling,
Mm-hmm.
because I think people are really smart and they can pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when they're watching Creepshow 2, that they see that they immediately, or subconsciously, whatever, they'll pick up the relationship between the characters. And I just thought it was brilliant. I just said, wow, this is a really, really smart. People look at, oh, it's just a horror movie in a raft. I'm going like, that's really smart storytelling. That in 10 seconds, Michael Gornick showed the relationship of the characters really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Now, did the four of you like were you? I mean, did you know each other beforehand, or just from the
No.
movie, and then that was it afterwards? Or
Yeah. No. 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 Didn't. We didn't. Nope. So, and Paige was wonderful. I mean, I didn't have any money when I came back,
mm-hmm.
and she like bought me dinner for a week. I called her up when I got back since she left early. And then I bumped into her years later in Malibu, and I said, Paige, I gave you my last $20 at the airport, and you fed me when I never told her it was my last 20. I just
Mm-hmm.
gave it to her. And I said, and then when I came back, you remember how you fed me? And she said, yeah. And she goes, well, there you go, Daniel. Good karma.
That's really cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever the scene, because the two friends are already dead, and then the it's just you and her, and then you're
The
the
famous sex scene. You want
yeah,
to get that?
it's just like, hey, I
It
think
was
I'm
in
gonna
it was
take
in the
my
script,
shot
and
to yeah.
it has to happen, or else I don't die.
Right.
Because horror movies like that, and a lot of horror movies,
That's very true. Yeah.
they're about revenge.
Hmm.
I mean, if that didn't happen and I died, that you'd be like, well, he doesn't deserve to die,
Yeah, he's the total innocent then. Yeah. I never
right?
thought of it that way. Hmm.
Yeah, people ask me that question, and that's it. I mean, that's the answer,
Hmm.
you know.
Nope.
Um, and that thing was just mechanical, having to do that scene.
Hmm.
So I write about one in the silence of remembering, and it's just really funny. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Uh, trust me, it's not what anybody thinks it is,
Uh-huh.
and it can be really funny. It's funny because of how uncomfortable you are inside,
Hmm.
and the circumstance in which you're doing a scene like that too, with all the people around.
Yeah.
You know, so
I
that's
can
why I think people
imagine.
will like the book. There's all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to reading the whole book.
Um, yeah, so that's the answer to that. I mean, I see that thing that question.
There's
They call it the rape scene and all that kind of stuff, and
yeah.
it's like, yeah, and that's why I die.
Well,
You know,
I like that answer. There was gonna now.
no, really. I mean, if that doesn't happen and I
Hmm.
die, it's a totally different experience for that movie, right?
It's much more. It's much more sad for your character.
Yeah, you go like, well, wait a second. You would feel like you got robbed or something.
Hmm. Just technically, there's a really good scene when you're swimming to the shore, and then you see the monster right behind you. And since it's overhead and there's no cuts, it would have to be moving like right along, behind you, I assume. Like, how long did that take to get right?
I I don't know.
Maybe
I
that's when
just
you got
remember
hypothermia.
swimming
I
a
don't
lot
know. Yeah.
and dying and
Uh.
freezing and getting oxygen. And when you're in that situation, the first time you go in the water, it feels like thousands of like knives and needles are stabbing you all over your body. That's what I dealt with.
Hmm.
And then after about a minute, that goes away, and then I'm totally numb and I don't feel anything.
Hmm.
And that's what's dangerous about it. So I, I, I just, remember looking back, and you have to keep a certain distance, and it's all so technical, and the camera's moving and stuff like that, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't, that's the best answer I can give on that. It's so technical. I don't think people realize how goddamn technical it all is.
Hmm.
You have to hit three. I just did a Rizzoli in Isles where I play a bad guy in the shootout scene at the end. Holy gosh, was it difficult to do. Wow. Wow. Having to hit, 3 or 4 marks within 45 seconds. and turn a certain way and grab her and do all this stuff. I mean, it's really technical.
Yeah,
and I write about it in my book about that stuff. I mean, it's really technical, and how if you screw that up and everything.
Yeah, and I would assume you have that in your mind, but at the same time, your main thing would be you want to be in the character and acting.
You have to do all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the talent comes in. You have to be able to do this while standing on one foot, leaning a certain way. So you know what I mean. So you're in this, so the angle's right or whatever. I mean, that thing I had to, there I am, hypothermia, and I have to swim at a certain pace. You there?
Yep.
On my Skype thing.
Yeah, we have a caller on here, but go on. We'll get to him one second.
Yeah, so and it was just you swim at a certain pace, and you have to be in character and doing all that stuff, and then the cameraman has to keep up with you and everything like that. I love it. It's fun. To me, it's very athletic. It's hand-eye coordination, and it's sports and everything. So it's really cool. It's really cool that way, and I feel more relaxed there than I do like in life.
That's interesting.
Most people, it's the other way around, but I just I love that challenge.
We've got a caller here on the line, Alan. Alan,
you there, Alan?
Sorry, Alan. Nope, I guess not. He's scared, I believe.
Don't be scared.
Yeah, it'll be fine. or his audio is not working. Yeah, his audio's not. Well, we'll get back to it in a second. Now, after you said you weren't familiar with the first movie when you made, did you ever go back and watch the original Creepshow?
I just have a memory of Ted Danson in the sand being buried.
I can hold my breath for a long time. Yes.
Yeah. So I just have that memory.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you a horror movie fan?
I'm too scared, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too scared. Like I like the Conjuring, and I still have to go see Conjuring 2.
What is it about those kind of films you think you like better than other horror movies?
Story. What everybody else is, what we've been talking about is that it's just not, it's not what do they call horror porn or something like that. It's just not like that.
Yeah.
It's just there's a story and there's characters. It reminds me of The Omen and Damien and stuff like that. And The Omen I just saw recently. Or was it Damien I just saw recently with Gregory Peck?
Hey Daniel, I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan of yours, dude.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Hey, Alan, I just want to say that I believe you're the first live caller that I've spoken to in an interview. So thanks, man. I will always remember your name. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I was gonna ask you a couple questions. I know you guys were talking earlier about like Creepshow and stuff like that, but I noticed like a bunch of stuff on like your Facebook about like behind the scenes stuff that it's pretty cool, and I watched a couple of your interviews before you talking about behind the scenes, so I kind of really don't want to get into that too much. Maybe I got a couple questions later, but I was going to ask you more about like your book, if you enjoyed, writing, or what was the hardest part about writing it, stuff like that. So,
well, the log line is twigs adjusted to purgatory must brother confront crippling memories blurred by a family secret the night of her death.
Yep.
So, and the behind the scenes stuff is the reader's going to feel what it's like to be an up-and-coming actor in Hollywood and dealing with that and dealing with going to Hollywood parties, meeting with publicists, agents, the women, the drugs, just all of that. And I don't think it's really been written about properly. So, and the personal side of it and the family side of it is dealing with an incredibly dysfunctional family. And I think people can relate to that. And as Neal said about a person's dark side and having to deal with your dark side. And the conflict is, can you imagine Alan, you or Neil, you going through this, having to become this movie star and having to deal with all this stuff, and you have this unresolved dark side in your life, and hoping to God nobody finds out about this. And how will you talk about this? I mean, it's like Robert Downey Jr. falling apart. That
Yeah,
Wayback Plan, seeing
yeah.
these people fall apart. That's what's going on inside of them.
Okay, so like the dark side would be maybe like addiction or like some
Yeah, well,
sort.
here's the thing. What I what differently, it's just not a guy about addiction. It's about his personal and his family trauma. I mean,
Okay,
I think a lot of people, a lot of actors you see. I mean, look at Lindsay Lohan. Her family was an absolute mess, and having to deal with that, I felt for her.
yeah.
And how do you deal with secrets? I don't know if you have secrets, or Neil, if you had family secrets.
See, well, the thing is,
Did you have to keep secrets? Did you
yes,
have?
I did, but I'm not in the spotlight as like,
There you
I
go.
don't have paparazzi
That's it.
around
That's what I'm
me.
talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
That's the conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So, and also, there's a love interest. I think that's in order to be in love, you have to embrace your own dark side, and if you don't, you won't be able to fall in love. And his love interest in the book, she's already has done that. So that's the other thing. I mean, you don't have to be a burgeoning movie star in order to relate to this. I think that's why relationships don't work. Somebody's not integrating some side of themselves, because they don't want to be found out about something. How do you deal with it?
Yeah.
You feel inferior, or insecure.
No, you know what? It's crazy because you talk about that stuff, and I actually had like an addiction problem. I was an alcoholic, or I suffered with alcoholism, and I struggle with that. And then I went into rehab. I'm sober now for about a year and a half.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks. And but like I understand it's hard. It's hard when it interferes with your life, and you try to be something, and like you said, you got these secrets, and you try to end up like hiding them, and all that stuff. That can be a job in itself, is trying to hide all that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's insecurity, it's inadequacy, it's all of those things that
Yeah.
trip you up. I mean, he has, my character Alex has terrible, anxiety and panic disorders going on, you know, with when all this happens. So I just know from my own thing when I was at Point Break and Dying Young and all this stuff, and just some of the stuff that happened to me, I was like, I have no idea how to deal with this. And
Yeah.
that's what I put in the book. And I think it'll be interesting because I just don't think anybody's written about it, And if they write about it, they always dehumanize the person going through it if they're an actor or not, I mean, would you agree with that, Neil, that you see that when things are written, that
Yeah,
they
I would,
kind of turn them into cliches and dehumanize them?
I would, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think that was a good assessment. And as someone who's not on the inside, I wouldn't know if that was just the way things are, and to see a different take on that is very interesting. And I want to ask you a question. Was about
Hold on. Can I interrupt for 1 minute? I want
yeah.
to see if this is working. So I did on my fan page here on my phone this Q&A, and I have one from this Electra. I can't pronounce her last name, Nachios, and I don't know if she's listening or if this is just on my fan page. But she asked me, "Who's your favorite superhero?" So my answer is the Incredible Hulk.
Nice. Well, why the Incredible Hulk?
Because of his anger issues, I can absolutely relate to it.
That's a good answer. Now, are you happy?
And it's in my book. In my book, right? He has night frights. In night frights, I did research on it because I had it growing up. And night frights are it's an incredible amount of anger going on. And that's why, and I would actually when I had those night frights, like my arms would be too big and stuff it was just crazy what happened. And it was kind of like the Incredible Hulk. So that's why I like the Hulk. Real specific answer, huh?
Yeah.
Good answer. At least you didn't say like Spider-Man or Captain America. It seems like to be like one of the bigger ones, Batman.
Well, I think
But that's cool.
Hulk's a pretty
Neil,
big
what
one,
were you
too.
going to say?
I was going to ask about the two main characters in your book, Alex and Twigs, and I think, obviously a lot of Alex is inspired by a lot of your background, but how much of you is in the Twigs character?
That's a great question. What an astute question. Twigs is what he wants to be. He's like the ideal person. She's totally healed, and so Twigs is like his. It's like the ideal person, and I kind of invented this little sister thing. And it was also I went through a time where I was talking to my younger self. It's funny. I did another interview with somebody else, and he said the same thing, that he's done that before too. So it's kind of based on my younger self, because I was going through a time, and I was like, I really don't have anybody to talk to about this.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of talked to my younger self, and so that's kind of Twigs too. But she's kind of like just the ideal self, the voice of reason, that other person on your shoulder, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fully integrated, understanding, caring.
Mm-hmm.
It's that person, like when you're being hard on yourself and you're saying, Alan, I don't know if you're still on the line here, but with addiction, and you're being hard on yourself and you're being whatever, and let's say you slip, right, and then you're hard on yourself. Well, Twigs is that person that says, hey, it's okay. If you would just face this and this and this, but it's okay. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Let's see here. We do have some more questions here. Amber.
Is Alan still online, or is he gone?
I think we lost Alan. He can call back in if he likes.
Yeah, Alan, if you're listening, you want to call back in if you want to talk about the behind the scenes stuff too. So I'm having a ball with all these voices going on, but I'm pumped. No, I've never been committed, and I am not schizophrenic. This is all just fiction, and it's artistic, and I'm just happy to be very, very open with you all, because Neil is a great host.
Excellent. Let's see here. Amber wants to know, what did the blob from the water feel like, and what was it made of?
The blob? What did it feel like? I never really got to touch it. It was a big piece of, I think, plastic or something like that. But here's the story on that, is that like 2 or 3 weeks before shooting, Amber, the original blob that they made didn't work. So they had to come up with that thing at the last minute. I think they came up with it the week before. And there's a very good documentary that's on YouTube about the making of Creepshow 2 from the special effects point of view.
Yeah, I posted it on your page. It should be on your fan page. Look at
this guy. Look at this guy. He's like
Sorry.
He's like navigating. He's navigating my page. I love it.
Dude, I love you, bro. Like, there's actually, what's her name, Amber?
Yeah.
There's actually there's behind the scenes footage. It actually there's a story, because Ed French was hired as the main makeup effects guy in Creepshow 2, but they didn't like his progress, so they moved him to Maine, and then Howard Berger and Greg Nicotero were actually bumped up to be, to kind of take over, and that's where they kind of got their beginnings, and that's G&B Effects, which is known, Greg Nicotero does The Walking Dead now, but that was actually their beginning, was Creepshow 2, and Howard Berger actually met his wife. She was, I think, like third, like camera assistant, not like the director of photography, but like the third in line or something like that.
Very good. So, Alan, what's your last name?
It's Pelk, Pelc.
Oh, so this is Alan Pelk, huh?
Yeah, man. Yep.
Hey, man, it's a real pleasure to meet you over the line like this. Yeah,
thank you. Same
here. On my fan page, and you've always been really, really supportive. So.
Dude, yeah.
And I'm glad that you've been sober and everything like that. So
yeah, thank you.
So yeah, I know exactly. I recognize your name exactly.
Oh, very
so
cool.
Do you have brothers?
I have a brother, Michael.
Are you in upstate New York?
I am. Yep, I'm in right.
Pretty good memory, huh?
Right by Albany. Yeah, dude. Thank you. I mean,
pretty good, right, Neil? You don't think I pay attention to my fans?
No, I know you do. That's why
So my fans
so
have
happy to talk to you finally and get to
Yeah, so they have to. So So my fans have to order my book then,
Definitely.
right? Because since I'm like, I
Yes.
think your dad wrote me too.
Yeah. My dad and my mom follow you, so I'm
That's
just, you
right.
know, like I said, I'm
Are
trying
they gonna
to.
order?
I do have a question for you, Alan. What is it
Yes, sir.
about? What is it about Daniel that makes you sort of connected to him as an actor?
Very good
What
question.
it was is I actually wrote this on his fan page, and he did an interview with I think it was like Real Horror TV or something like that. But he
Right.
actually read one of my comments on his fan page. But basically, what it was is when I was very very young, probably 3 or 4 years old, one of the first movies I watched, like seriously, was Creepshow 2. It was at my grandma's house. It was actually recorded over an old monster truck thing from like 19, I don't know, 86 or something. It must have been on HBO when it first came out in 1987. So around like 1990, when I was 3, I stumbled upon it, I watched it, and I fell in love. And I mostly fell in love with the Raft segment and, Daniel Beer's character Randy, just because it was just it was different, when I watched, 1990 and when the movie came out in 1987, was just something that like could happen. It wasn't like a like
Alan, were you the one that wrote? And I apologize if I get confused.
yeah.
Were you the one that wrote that said that you felt like you never quite made it, and you were related to my character or something like that, and the D
No,
character? What did you write about it? Because I asked the question.
I don't.
How did you related to that character in a way, didn't you?
I don't. I maybe. I don't think so. I'm trying to think.
Because that was interesting. I just asked people, and it wasn't for a compliment. I was just asking
Yeah.
people why they like it and everything. It was what I talked to you earlier about feeling connected,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to connect with a character and connect with stuff, you
Mhm.
know. So that was so I got those answers about like, I related to your character because I never quite made it over, and or I related that there was somebody better than me like the D character, or a lot of things where people feel connected is where they watch it with a sibling, mother or father or friends, and they connect to each other through the movie, which was a lot at that horror convention, Neil,
Yeah.
that I had. A lot of people were like, these two sisters talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were unaware
Mm-hmm.
of that when I pointed it out to them. They were like, whoa, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I have that with books too. People have it with books where they relate to the character too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was interesting that Alan brought up grandmother because someone else had a similar story. Dave, it's kind of a long story, but he says, such a great time to be a kid. I was left at my grandparents' house, and they'd park me in front of the TV. They didn't realize that after 11:30 a.m., it went from Sesame Street to Fox 50 Afternoon Horror Show. Saw movies that changed my life way too young, and inspired the nightmares that made me a lifelong horror fan. All the good ones, and he names a bunch of movies, including Creepshow 2. Think being shocked that young made me an all-around film fan, and the Raft taught me that even when you think you're safe, you keep running. Good life lesson. They said not really a question,
Is
but
this somebody just wrote this in just now? Where'd you read that
yeah,
from?
they wrote in last night on my page. Dave Deadman.
Holy cow. So what was his lesson? He said, even if you think you make it, you didn't?
He said even when you think you're safe, you keep running. I guess because you're not really safe. Because like your character at the end, he thinks he's made it, and he just stops running, and then that's when he
Yeah,
gets
but
eaten.
don't you see that's what's so cool about character and story and
Mm-hmm.
life lessons and all of that stuff that I was just talking about earlier in character development and everything. Do you follow what I mean? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
and that's what good storytelling is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That person Dave got all of that out of that. That's just great. As an actor, you have no idea that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're just working.
Yeah, and you don't know what someone will get out of it.
No.
That's I think that's how really I think that's how all art works. Everyone will see. Some people see things that themselves in the art, or a different lesson, or they might just see the surface of it and just see it as a fun monster movie. There's all different things they can take out of it.
Well, that's the wonderful part of it is what you just read. That's the reward. That's the huge reward for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've had some people comment just from reading from the first chapter and stuff, and there's a girl, Rosella, if I'm pronouncing her first name right, and she's really supportive and always reposts stuff for Silence of the Remembering and telling people to buy it and stuff like that. And she just wrote, "I really want to get to know Twigs more," and that just really moves me. I mean, that's what it's about. So what David wrote is absolutely wonderful. Thanks for writing that, David.
Let's see here. George James Fraser. I'm not sure what this means, but maybe you'll understand it. A story of a sexually charged dancer being hunted by Nazis. Sounds like it could be a great film. Have you ever considered pursuing your great uncle's story?
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if you read my bio, but I'm the
I
great
did. It
great.
was on IMDb. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like the great 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 great. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, I'm getting a couple things confused. Friedrich Ebert was the first elected president of Germany, and he's like my great 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 uncle. And then I have another great great uncle, Helga Peters Pavlomine, who was a famous dancer, and he was hunted by the Nazis because he danced the male and female parts, but he wasn't gay. He was married, but because he danced the male and female leads, the Nazis thought he was gay.
Huh.
And it's funny. I did a charcoal and ink giant drawing, and I believe it's on my fan page of him in tribute to him, called Male Female Lead. That I did. So I have some of my artwork posted up there.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to represent me in a gallery, I'm more
That's awesome.
it's all
You
underneath
do
my bed.
really good work, man. I mean, the charcoal stuff where you're blending, I noticed. Did you take any art classes in school,
No.
or is it just
No.
nice? No, it's really good work, dude.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it kind of runs in the family. Yeah, I mean, that question when you said about a movie, yeah, it could be a movie. It's probably more like a TV show. Unfortunately, movies now, those types of stories are more for television, because movies now are just about superheroes.
Yeah. I really think we're in a golden age of TV, though. There's some great television shows.
Yeah, TV is kind of the way the films were in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what I'm sort of betting on too, with Silence of Remembering, saying that, like, I didn't want to write, a dystopian novel. I didn't want to write a fantasy. I didn't want to write any of that stuff. I wanted to write something that's character driven and a story, and kind of has a great hook with this character being in purgatory, telling it from that perspective. And I'm just wondering if once it gets published and it's out there more, that if people are kind of starved for that type of storytelling, it's like, people are turning that type of storytelling is in television, like my book, they'd never make it into a movie. It'd be more of a TV show, They just don't do those movies anymore like that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it would probably make that thing about my uncle. It's a good question. Probably more of a TV show. I have some photos of him, I believe, on my fan page too. They're postcards. He was kind of like the Baryshnikov, and then he ran, I think, like the Munich Ballet or something like that. I never met him. Obviously, he died long before me. So, yeah, my German history is it's really interesting that way. So, anyone else write in?
Yeah, he also wanted to know, does your knowledge of the tango help you out while training in the boxing ring?
Who is this guy that wrote this? What's his name?
George James Fraser, who I just met recently.
You met him?
Yeah, I was at a movie wrap party last week for The Streets Run Red, and he was there as a small part of the movie, and he's also an independent filmmaker here in Boston.
Oh, really? Boston?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Boston. I did Spencer Fire up there. I almost moved up there. I liked it so much. I love Vermont. That's great that he's a filmmaker up there. Actually, I learned boxing before I learned tango. Freddie Roach trained me, and tango or any ballroom dancing is just like learning any sport. It's just hand-eye coordination. It's really no different. It's funny. I kind of thought when I was learning tango, I said this is just like boxing, where you're boxing in sports where you learn certain pieces and then you have to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't think anymore. You know, like you learn how to shoot a jump shot, then you learn how to do a layup, then you have to learn how to go from one thing to another. You know, and same with boxing. So yeah.
Yeah. Now you talked about being an athlete. Obviously, in the movie, you're swimming and you're in good shape and all these other things, boxing, tango. How did you go? How did you get into acting?
How do I get into they asked me this on another show, and I kind of I kind of wrote I incorporated in the book Silence of Memory because I had somebody, an agent, read it and say, like, you know, you should really put in there how the person became an actor. So I in my book, it's based on how I did it. I moved from this small town, Huntington Falls, New York, when I was 18, and I moved to New York City, knowing one person. It was crazy to do. And also part of the book takes place, he has to go back home, and I write about my hometown, Huntington Falls, which is in upstate New York. So I use that too. I just saved some money that summer, and I moved and I lived at the YMCA, and I write about it in the book. That experience. It was it's a tiny little room. I lived off of pretzels in front of Madison Square Garden, and I knew an acting teacher, and I studied with him. What happened was when I was a senior in high school, my neighbor was dating a guy who was a New York actor, and he was doing a play up at Jiva Theater, which is a great theater. And I said to him, I think I want to become an actor. And he said, you know, have you ever thought about modeling? I thought he was crazy because I had such severe acne growing up. And I write about that too. That's why I call it fictional memoir.
Yeah.
So I thought he was crazy to say that. And I said no, and he said, I'll tell you what, well, you can come down and visit me. You know, he said, there's something about you. You can come down and visit me if it's okay with your parents. So instead of going on my senior class trip, I went to New York City. I didn't tell anybody. And I think a couple of people found out. I got really teased really badly. So, I mean, from where I came from, saying you wanted to be an actor and move to New York City was like saying you were going to get on a rocket ship and go to Pluto. So I went down to New York when I was a senior, and it was the first time I was in a subway. I remember being like, what the hell is that coming? I said, the guy's name was Eric, and I said, what the hell is that? He goes, that's a subway. I was like, Jesus Christ. It was thrilling. And I went into this acting class, Ed Coven's acting class, and Jennifer Beals sat down next to me. She was, you know, whatever, a couple years after Flashdance. And I couldn't believe it. And he had me get up and do commercial copy. And I said, well, I'm not taking the class. And he said, go, get up and do it. And I got in line. And it was a Pepsi thing, I remember. And he said to me, you ever hang out on the corner after I did it? I did it badly. And he said, you ever hang out on the corner with your friends and, like, you know, talk on the corner? I said, there is no corner where I grew up. He said, where do you hang out? I said, well, there's like a gas station. He said, well, pretend you're talking to your friends at the gas station and you're talking to them about, like, Pepsi. No, it was the Levi's jeans, talking about Levi's jeans. I said, okay, and for some reason I did a Southern accent. I'd never done a Southern accent my entire life, and it came out perfectly. And he said, that's it. He said, Jesus, that was really good. So I went home after the visit, and Eric called me up, and he said, my acting teacher says, you got it. You should move to New York. You should study with him and have your parents send you to NYU. Well, my parents were not going to send me anyplace. I knew I wasn't going to get any help from them. So I said, okay, I'm going to move to New York City. I'm going to study with his acting teacher because he's showing me support and encouragement, because I really didn't have any place to go, you know. And so I moved to New York City with a couple suitcases, and that was it. It's a very old-fashioned kind of story. And I moved there, and I called up, you know, Eddie, and I said, I'm here, I want to come to class. And he said, okay, great. And I went to class, and that was it. And I booked a film, Hell High, my second month in New York.
Is that a trauma? Was that a trauma film? Hell High?
It was like a teenage exploitation horror movie.
Okay, yep. I seen that.
And actually, I signed one of those at the HorrorCon.
Nice. That's
I
cool.
said, Matt Burns, who was one of the guys that threw that 4-state HorrorCon, he was like, I was like, you got this? And he said, yeah. Actually, the horror community actually knows that. I was like, wow, they actually know that movie. They actually sometimes they get, you know, they talk to me about it.
It's like a cult classic. I mean, there's followers to that too. And I noticed that in your credits it said Hell High, and I was like, no way. And I checked it out, and I was
Yeah, it was my first month, I think I booked that, or second month, and then I booked a commercial. I started to book stuff, you know, right away. But that's how I did it. Became an actor, you know. Yeah, I just kind of set out on my own, you know. It's crazy to think, but yeah. Almost didn't make it. I lost a ton of weight. I almost didn't make it. I almost joined the Army.
No.
Because I was like, I don't know if I can do it. It was really hard. It was really hard. I mean, I'd never been in I remember going up in the skyscrapers and going like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe I'm this high up. I'm from my village. Honey Falls is like 2,000 people. It's a one-stoplight town.
Now, you obviously an actor, and you wrote Silence of Remembering People Can Order Now, and you talked about painting. So you do a lot of different
drawing. I don't paint. I just use charcoals, and I use pastels and stuff, and I use and I am in ink and stuff like that. So yeah. So I'm not in a gallery. If somebody wants to put it in a gallery and sell it, I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, but saying there's a lot of creative outlets there. Do you have a preference between those three, or are they all just ways to create things?
I think first and foremost, I'm an actor. You know how if you ask a singer, right? Mm-hmm. You ask a singer, you go, do you have melodies going on in your head all the time? And they'll say yes. It's like they always have a radio playing. Well, I always have kind of three things playing, and I just turn the channels. So I always have like an actor's thing going on in my head, and if things start to go on about stories where I go, like the experience I had with Patty Duke, I just walked away and said, I got to write this. This is just, you know, hell of an experience. Or I'll think of story ideas. And with the drawing and stuff, if I really want to click over like to that station, you can call it, then I can click in with that, because there's things I see a lot, or I come up with ideas about what I want to do. But I have to stay focused and trying to make money at one of them. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the other thing too, you know? My dream would be, you know, if I'm more famous, and when you're more famous, then there's more of a demand for the stuff that you produce, you know? If I was way more famous, then I could be in a gallery, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to sit down and do, you know, 8 pieces and stick them in a gallery and stuff, because this thing I just did took me 3 months. It took me forever to do the damn thing. And I'd be more than happy. Like I always thought, okay, in between projects or in between something, you know, I could complete, write a book of short stories, write a book, or complete some, you know, I just call my artwork pieces of art type stuff. So, but it's always going on outside my head, you know. And like the best comparison is people who are musicians. It's always going on inside their head. So.
I have a question for you.
I don't know if that sounds crazy. Does that sound crazy?
No.
No, actually, my co-host and partner here on the show, Annabelle Lecter, is not here this evening, but she always says the same thing. She's an artist, and that there's always something going on in her head that you know, she tries to get out through her.
I mean, you're an interviewer, Neil. Do you think of like, oh, questions? I'd like to interview that person. I'd be curious to ask some questions.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, or just different things to do on the show, if it's a segment, or just anything that I think would be fun or interesting or creative to do on the show.
Do you? Is there anybody else that wrote anything else in?
Yeah,
Neil?
we've got Xavier Anderson, which kind of was a follow-up to what you said just a minute ago, was since your first role was in a horror film, did it cause a stigma in finding other roles in film and television?
Good question. Who wrote that?
Xavier Anderson.
What a great name, Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
No. It's funny. I would think like that when I was younger, and the business was a little bit like that. And now it's kind of broken down. Like, if you did TV, you couldn't do movies. Now there's no walls, which is great.
Yeah.
But the stigma was it was just considered like this cheesy horror movie. I remember going like I just didn't think anything of it. It's shocking. It opened up number 2 at the box office, and it's become a classic movie. Because nobody thought that. I guess Xavier, the better answer would be that that it's amazing that it stood the test of time. Mm-hmm. And it's also amazing that if that movie came out now and it was a horror movie and it was number 2 at the box office, it doubled its budget in the first weekend. It doubled its budget. Mm-hmm. That the amount of exposure all the actors would have gotten, we'd be all over the place. Nobody called me up for an interview when that thing came out. Nobody called any of us for an interview. I mean, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Neil, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, because it like you said, if a movie like that would come out now, it would be all over the place. Everyone would be, having.
You do press. I didn't do it. There was nothing. Mm-hmm. Nothing. It was number 2 at the box office.
Has your opinion or view of Creepshow 2 changed over time, from when it came out at that time to now?
That's a really good question. That's a great question. I really didn't at the time. I was like, oh God, this is just some weird horror movie, and it's really nothing or anything like that. And that over time that it's become a classic. And when I started my fan page, see, a producer, he produced a Julia Roberts movie. What did he produce? He produced Pretty Woman, and he said to me, "You got to have a fan page." It was like a couple years back. And I said, I don't want to because I'm like really private. So doing these interviews for my book, putting my book up on Inkshares, and starting a fan page, all of this is way out of my comfort zone. And it's something that I have to learn how to do this. And it's what tripped me up when I was younger about doing interviews and stuff. And I write about it in my book. And I was protecting myself is what I was doing. I felt completely inadequate. And I was protecting myself. And that's what the character in my book is based on me, and that's what he's going through. So I learned through the fans on my fan page about the movie and what it meant and how that it's a classic. It's just jaw-dropping to me, Mm-hmm. It means a lot to people. And what was the thing? The guy, what was his name? David, who said, "Yeah, you have to run. You're never safe."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And how they pick stuff up from it. A lot of it is people didn't feel alone, that they shared it with friends. That's what I got a lot from when I asked people. I said, "What is it about the movie?" And a lot of it is that they didn't feel alone. So I think the fans really helped me realize that it's, for that genre, that it's a damn good movie for that genre. And they probably made me feel proud of it, where people in the business and actors can get very, snobby about stuff or whatever and go, "Oh, it's just some silly horror movie," Mm-hmm. And so it's the fans, and I thank them for that. For making me realize that, and going to that horror convention made me realize that too.
Mm-hmm. And I think Creepshow 2 was great, but what stood out was the Raft segment. I mean, a lot of people, just watch that movie just for the Raft segment that you were in, and there's something about it. Like I said, it just.
See the new Blake Lively thing where she's a shark and she's out on a boat?
Yeah, the swallows.
I said that's the
The
Raft.
shallows.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, there's a
shallows.
lot of things. I go, oh, that's the Raft.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I had a question for you, Daniel, if you don't mind. I noticed like you had pictures of you and Paul. What's Satterfield? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Paul. Did you guys stay in touch after Creepshow
No.
2? You
No,
didn't?
I mean, we were in touch for a little bit, and then as friends, you just kind of grow apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear
You
you.
know, I mean, I
Yeah.
used to, Keanu used to call me all the time. You know,
Cool. Yeah.
so yeah. Alan, I have a question for you. Why do you like the behind the scenes stuff? You brought that up.
Oh, I mean, I just like I said, like Creepshow 2, it's so nostalgic for me. And I mean, I consider myself a filmmaker too. Like I enjoy
You're an
films.
editor, aren't you?
I edit, yeah, I edit, films and music videos and stuff. Nothing like,
Right. I've seen your work. I think you sent it to me. It's good.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. But it's
So
just,
it brings you back to a time when you're kind of like you felt kind of innocent and young and everything like that. There's a kind of nostalgia for you.
exactly. It just reminds me of my childhood. Like Creepshow 2 just brings me back to like, when my family was together and I was with my grandma, and things were good. It was before. You grow up and you turn into an adult and you have to make these, obviously adult,
Right.
stuff. But
Yeah, I got a
like,
feeling you went through some stuff.
yeah, I did, but I'm coming back up, and it's a struggle.
I think you and I went through the same. Don't you have like really bad anxiety or something like that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, because I went through. I write about it in Silence of Remembering. So yeah, I know all about that stuff. So
Yeah. It's just,
yeah, if I remember correctly, I remember you writing about that. So
yeah. Yeah.
well, you're not alone. Everybody has it. So
Yeah,
and that's
and
the thing
it's,
when people read the book. That's the thing where you feel like, oh Jesus, It's like Fitzgerald said, remember, young man, you're not the first to feel alone and alone and alone.
and you can relate to it too, which is good. And like you said, you're not alone. You could there's always someone out there that has similar issues, and
Right.
there's
Anybody else write
Yeah,
any questions,
we've got
Neil?
Edward.
Any other callers too?
Yeah, if you guys want to call in, you're free to 508-413-3144. I know we're not normally live on Monday, so it's a little different here. But Edward Vega wants to know who came up with the whole Cisco and Pancho nicknames. It was also seen on the television in Old Chief Woodenhead. It seems like an inside joke throughout Creepshow 2.
I would imagine somebody sent me an audio of the short story. I think it's in the short story, isn't it? I think so.
I've not seen the short, so I'm not sure.
I just like the nickname. If somebody calls, said, they write or Pancho or something like that. If I want to
it's from the old
something,
TV show.
Pancho, it's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, Owl wants to know what was it like working on Babylon 5?
Oh wow, there's a fan who likes that stuff. It's funny. The first thing, I'll answer your question. As you can tell, I sort of digress a little bit, so I hope it's not annoying.
No, it's fine.
I had a fan sent me a Babylon 5 like trading card thing. I was on a trading card. They play a game on a Sci-Fi Babylon 5 game where they play against each other. And I was absolutely, it was mind-boggling. I was like, I can't believe they came up with something like this, and I can't believe I'm on some card. I did a guest star on the thing. It's just amazing what people come up with. Yeah, it was fun. I remember the audition, and I remember working on it.
I'm sorry. Well,
Hold on a sec.
So it was a good time.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you into sci-fi at all?
I liked Aliens, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Would Star Wars be considered sci-fi?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Star Trek. I really like Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Well, what did you think of Episode 7 of Star Wars? If you've seen it, I don't know.
I thought it was kind of like it was the first one, except they redid it.
Yeah.
There was I was like, wow, or this is the scene from the second one. They just kind of lifted scenes, and I thought they did a good job. They did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a huge success, and they were really smart in casting, how they mixed the cast. I know the Point Break, they were trying, somebody started a fan page, Barry did, send a fan page to try to get me back in the original Point Break, and I thought they were going to mix the cast. with the old and new. Because that's the smart way to do that stuff, and they didn't do that with Point Break, the new one. I thought that was a mistake.
Yeah, it doesn't. What do you think of just remakes in general? There's so many of them in the last 10 years or so.
Well, the reason why there is because there's a built-in fan base, and also the log line is there. The log line that you have to do with a movie, it's easy to go grab onto, so people can get it. Ghostbusters. You know what I mean? I mean, you just wherever that log line is. What is it? Three guys, find out that the city's haunted by ghosts, and they have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those are really hard to come up with. I think it's all. I mean, the way Holly, I'm an insider here, so you have to make money. So I get why they do it, and they do make money, and a lot of audiences like them. So I think it's fine. I think it's hard to come up with new stuff. What do you think of them?
I mean, there's I don't like to say just blanket statements like I'm anti-remake, because if it wasn't for remakes, when had like John Carpenter's A Thing, and there's a lot of great remakes. I do think they're overboard on remakes. Like for example, you might not be familiar with the movie, but they just remade Cabin Fever, which was only like a 10-year-old movie, and I don't think it really has a big fan base. I'm not really sure what the point of that was, but I'm nothing against a remake if you have maybe if you're gonna do something a little different with it, and but there are a plethora of remakes in the last few years.
Yeah, I think reboots aren't done that well. I think remakes or sequels. I think people like the new Star Wars. I mean, it was great to see what they did with those characters. Bringing Harrison Ford back, and I think people get attached to characters, and it's almost like a TV show when they do 5 or 6 movies and see where the character progresses. So I think it's really cool if they do it like that.
Yeah, and I thought you said you're a Star Trek fan, and I really thought it was smart how they did the reboot of Star Trek, because again they incorporated the original Spock, and they kind of kept it where it's still in the original storyline, but they go back into an alternate reality, so you're free to do what you want with those characters.
Right, and then they launch it and they do other ones, but that first one, how they kind of mix the old with the new type of thing,
Yeah, yeah. And even though I do agree with you, we did a review of the movie, but that the newest Star Wars, it is very similar to what's called Episode 4, but what we know as the original Star Wars. Even has the Death Star and all these things, but it also felt like one of the original Star Wars movies, which I don't think the last trilogy did.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think what was brilliant, I never heard anybody talk about it, and if I had a daughter, I'd drag her to that movie. Was the opening sequence, the way she handles when their planet's getting bombarded, and the actor keeps grabbing her hand and pulling her, and it's her planet, she lives on it, and she keeps going, "Why are you grabbing my hand? Why are you grabbing my hand?" She pulls it away, and he keeps trying to rescue her. And she basically just pulls it away and goes, like, "I don't need you." And she finds the ship, and she goes, "You man the gun, and I'm flying it out of here." And it's a real pro-feminist, strong, independent woman statement. And I loved it. And that's what that movie, they make that statement right in the beginning. And that's kind of the theme of that movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that was absolutely genius.
Without hitting you over the head.
I think little girls, watching that, I think that's a great, strong statement.
And I think, and it's without like hitting you over the head with it and being preachy. It's there, and without, you can see it.
It shows you. Right. It doesn't tell you. It shows you through that action. She keeps pulling her hand away, and she's not mean to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's incredibly original the way they handle that.
Here, we saw some more questions. Dave Sullivan, who also just met at that same thing. What was working on Point Break like? Any cool stories? Any bad stories?
Point Break was God. That was fun. I invented the rolling up the middle finger. I did that before Wayne's World. I'm the inventor of that.
That's awesome.
And that's something we did. I tell this story. I've told the story before. It's something we did to each other in school, sitting at the desk.
Uh-huh.
And the stakeout scene that I do it to Keanu and Gary. After I did it the first time, Catherine was like, "What are you doing?" Catherine Bigelow. I said, "Well," and I explained it to her. And I said, "Oh, God, is she going to take this out?" Because it wasn't in the script. And she said, "Okay, leave it in." So I like telling that story because I've been places and people have done that to me. And I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" And they say, "Dude, you're in Point Break. We did that. Once you did that, we did that to each other." So I kind of created a cultural gesture or something like that.
Uh-huh.
You know? So I'm very proud of that.
Mhm.
You know?
I should have used that in the intro as actor, author, and the inventor of the rolling up.
The inventor of the rolling up the middle finger to just somebody.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that's a good enough story, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Dave Sullivan. William wants to know, what's your favorite beer?
My favorite beer. I'm gonna have to go one from my hometown of Rochester. I guess I'll go Old Jenny, a Genesee beer from my hometown. I'm feeling a little homesick for Honey Falls in Rochester. And when I'm out here, since it's so Latin out here, I guess Modelo.
Good
And
question.
I've done quite a few beer commercials too, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I did the first ever Miller Genuine Draft where it snows, and they did like 5 of them. I did 2. I did the first one, then I did another one, and that was a ball to do. Special effects.
Mm-hmm.
So with a name like beer, I guess last name. I guess I was
Yeah, it was a
meant to
given.
do a few beer commercials.
Exactly. Todd Carter wants to know, what did your days of filming Creepshow consist of, and how long were they?
You're up really early, and as I kind of told you about my hypothermia experience,
Mm-hmm.
that was just brutal. I pretty much, as soon as I hit the water, I pretty much have hypothermia. So it's pretty much the whole movie. So I'd be shooting and going to sleep and getting oxygen while I'm shooting. Then I would go home and I would pass out in my hotel, and then I'd wake up and I would start it all over again. And I was eating like crazy because you burn so many calories doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were in Prescott, as they say there, Prescott, Arizona. On the set, I learned how to dally with a rope, one of the stunt guys, which is, doing a rope over your head type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
dallying a rope. So I learned how to, dally a rope, throw it, and, hook it on something and to pull it or whatever. So, in case I ever need to do a rodeo. Um, yeah, that was. It was a brutal shoot, man. It was brutal. And I'm glad I can laugh about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm laughing, but
Go ahead and laugh.
all right. Let's see, Derek Neal, how sticky was the blob from the Raft segment?
Well, luckily, I didn't get any out, but I guess the one stunt woman that doubled for Paige, I guess that stuff stuck to her, and it was. I think I think it stayed on her for a while. That stuff was like really sticky, actually. It was really
it's called Ultra Slime, and there was like a thing. Greg Nicotero was talking about it, how he got a rental car, and they said, "Oh, we got to get more Ultra Slime down here." So they
yeah, and it spilled all over the place.
Spilled all over the car, yeah, and they're like, "Shit!"
It destroyed the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when that happened, what goes through your mind? You're like, well, this is gonna be a longer day, or at least I don't have to deal with that.
Well, I didn't know about this billing stuff.
At the time.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really weird, and you're sitting there like, and somebody has the prosthetics on their face, and they have their faces off, and you're eating lunch and stuff. It's really fun. Everybody just sort of worries about their department. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one's coming up and telling me that because I got to deal with surviving the water, you know?
Mhm.
And that's key for anything you're doing work-wise, knowing your role and not getting involved where you don't have to get involved, you know?
Mhm. Have you ever wanted to do anything behind the camera, like direct or anything?
Uh, not really. You know, if I become a bigger, actor or whatever, maybe you got, you want to. It's hard, man. It's hard to be. It's hard. I don't. Yeah. It's a hell of a talent to be a director and keeping the movie in your head and knowing what works and doesn't work and stuff like that. So, and also, you're married to a project for a while too. You know.
Mhm.
So yeah, no. I think between like being an actor and writing and doing my artwork, if I could do all of those and you know make income from all three of those, then yeah, that's enough.
You should look into Texas Frightmare Weekend. Well, we go there for the last couple of years. Annabelle, the host on the show, her artwork's been on display there because it's not only a horror convention. They also have the dark arts display there, and her artwork's been displayed there. And I think being an actor in the horror community, that they'd have a good shot of maybe putting your stuff up on display.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. There's nothing horror about
Yeah.
my work, you
Mhm.
know. I mean, people may think I'm nuts and I'm reaching out to the horror community here because I'm not writing horror to say, like classic horror, but you know, I'm betting on or hoping or and I do feel that the horror community is more diverse than just having one taste,
Definitely. Mhm.
So, but I'll look into that. Thanks for the
Yeah.
suggestion.
Robert Staples, are there plans for a cast reunion at any horror convention? Everyone loves this movie, and it would do well.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I've had people mention it to me. I'd love to see Michael Gornick again, just so I can, stand there for 10 minutes and tell everybody what a great guy he is and how much I love the guy and how he, you know, saved me from going into shock, basically, from hypothermia. And that,
Mhm.
and that how talented he was to bring that thing in on time and under budget. I when I did that horror convention, I did with Tom Wright, and I guess their scene, the Hitcher scene, that was brutally cold too. That was really hard to get through. Really hard to get through.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, so I would love to see. It'd be great to see the cast. But I really like to see Michael Gornick. I mean, I thanked him then too, but when you're a teenager, you can't really express those things that well.
Mhm.
And
You were
actually,
saying,
I think his name. I'm getting names confused, but I think is it Lee Carr is writing an extensive book on it, and he interviewed Michael Gornick, and Michael has all of this stuff from his filming, all of his notes and everything. And he's in contact. He lives in Pittsburgh, I believe. And I just told him, please, pass on my sentiments to Michael. So
yeah, because you were saying how he really looked after you on the set. When you were really cold, mentioned he was like such a genuine,
he just
person.
cared. Yeah, he
Yeah,
just
he really cared about your. He was concerned about how cold it was. I mean, it was so cold that the trailer that like Paige Hanna stayed in, and like all the makeup was frozen, the water wouldn't run because it was so cold. Like that's how cold it was, and you guys actually had to pretend it was in season to swim, even though it was in Prescott, Arizona. At the time it was freezing. So
yeah.
I mean, just
The
going.
first couple of days, it wasn't. That was so strange. The weather, just everything. I mean, there's just stuff. The first couple of days, it was like, oh, okay, it's pretty warm here. I could deal with this, and then boom,
Ugh.
all changed. So yeah, but I love this. I think it's an iconic photo, and everybody uses it. I'm glad you used it too, Neil, for the where I'm coming out of the water and the blob's behind me, and I'm
Mhm.
where I'm yelling and stuff. That's a great iconic photo.
Yeah.
So
There's.
it's on a T-shirt too. Somebody did a
Oh,
T-shirt
really?
of the raft and had me
Someone
on it.
got baptized in it.
That's my very good friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I thought I gave her Yeah, I'm actually going to go to her wedding, and I gave her a T-shirt, and she liked, horror, and then I saw that she got baptized in the Raft
Oh,
T-shirt,
okay.
That's awesome.
I thought you
and
mentioned.
I said, God, it's kind of apropos being on water and stuff, so I
uh,
kind of busted her chops
yeah,
about
I
it.
thought you meant they were baptized in like the black slime, but
No,
the.
no, she was wearing my, T-shirt, she got dunked,
Yeah, yeah,
So I
that's really.
said, yeah, it's appropriate if you're going to be in water to wear that.
Uh, there's oh, by the way, for people out there, we have a Tom Wright interview on the website. He's a really funny guy and told a lot of stories about the movie and all his career. It is really good stuff.
Yeah, he's great, Tom.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just real quick, did you have interaction with any of the people from any of the other segments on the movie while you were filming it?
Um,
Like the hitchhiker or the or old Chief Woodenhead?
I got to know, and I'm still, I can call him up anytime. Holt McCallahan, Holt, because we have a mutual friend, Paul Johansson. So actually, I met him, I think, after we did the movie, just because through a mutual friend,
Hmm.
and that's it. Because everything was shot separately.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Old Chief Woodenhead segment was actually filmed probably not too far away from Great Granite Basin Lake, which was where they filmed the Raft.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Yep.
And you can also check out, we also had Dan Kamen on from Old Chief Woodenhead, which is a
Cool.
really fun interview.
Any other callers?
Yeah, it's here. Ebony wants to know, did you want your character to survive? I know we talked about it earlier, but did you want your character to survive, or are you happy with the ending?
If I did keep being cold down there, then no, I did not want to survive.
Uh-huh.
I was like, please kill me so I can warm up.
Awesome. Now, I'll let everyone know, Silence of Remembering, which we talked a lot about. We'll have the link for the ink shares, and it's really cool. If you just want the ebook, you can get that, but I do think it's probably best if you get but you do whatever you want, but you can get the paperback for $20, the ebook for $10. If you get the paperback, it's signed, and you also get the ebook. So
Yeah, and
that's
it's
a really
also
good deal.
$5 off. Because I think somebody who ordered it sent me a message saying that they got $5 off.
Oh, that's
wait, are
awesome.
you talking about a signed book from Mr. Daniel Beer himself?
Yes.
Oh, you're gonna have a link on your site?
Yep. I'll have a
No,
link.
no, it says here. I'm looking at the Inkshare thing, right? And it says
Mhm.
here, $10 you get an e-reader ebook,
Mhm.
right? It says $20 you get a signed paperback copy of the book, an ebook, right?
Mhm.
And free shipping in the U.S. And then it says here, super reader, which is $60, which is $3. You get your name on the back of the book, multiple signed paperbacks, and an ebook.
Great.
So yeah, that's what's on there. And like I said, I asked somebody. I said, "Was it easy?" And it said it was very about ordering. And this is what she wrote. She wrote, "It was very easy and made me feel like I was becoming part of something cool site." So, and if for some reason it doesn't get published, and I'm very disappointed, and I cry and have a breakdown, but you will still get your money back. So. It's not like a crowdfunding thing where you put your money in and you never see it again. You actually get a return on your investment. So,
Mhm. But yeah, has anyone, well, besides yourself, obviously, read the finished book, and what have they thought of it?
no, I mean, I had at one point I had a literary, one of the top New York literary agents, and uh, and they submitted it to some editors, and they say if you have a top literary agent, they submit it to editors, it means that it's a very good book. It's good enough to get published. But since it's not like a fantasy type thing, you know what I mean? It's not that genre. It's not about vampires in high school.
Hmm.
That yeah, no, it wouldn't sell. That's what they're saying. So it's funny though. I think a lot of publishing is works like the movie business, where you either have a huge built-in fan base, or you're writing some kind of fantasy thing that they think they can have a mega hit where they turn into a movie, which I have no problem with. You know what I mean? But the style of my writing and fiction, and where it's real, where it's character driven, is I think being neglected, and I think people still want to read it. It's kind of like we give the example of like, everything is a big blockbuster movie and all the interesting stuff is going to TV. So I'd like to think that Inkshares is like the Netflix of publishing, where it's getting really interesting stories put up there, and mine being one of them. That's the way I'd like to think of it. My Silence of Remembering is like some cool TV show on Netflix. That 20 years ago they'd make a movie out of, but they won't. But they won't now. So does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
well, like I said, we'll have the link
So,
up on the website. And,
but no. As for your thing about reading complete, yeah, I mean, everybody says you're a really talented writer. The writing's really great. So, I studied my craft too on it. So yeah.
Well, very cool. I'm looking forward to that, and I hope everyone listening here supports it. Either go and get yourself a copy, and or at least share the link, on your Facebook, your Twitter, wherever it is. Even if help out.
I will share and I will buy.
Excellent.
Thanks.
You're
Thanks
welcome,
so much,
bud.
Alan.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Alan.
Yep.
Thanks for calling in too. It was a pleasure to get to talk to you. I'm glad that you like the movies that I've been in and everything like that. So and keep editing and just keep at the stuff that you're doing.
Thanks, brother. You too, man. Thank you.
All right, man. I'll see you on my fan page.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay.
Alan.
Take care.
Yep. You too.
Bye. Let's see. Now, how can people? I know we'll have the link and stuff, but what's the best way to follow you? Would you say Facebook?
On my fan page. I'm real. As you can tell, I knew a lot about Alan, who called in. He's a fan of my fan page. On my fan page, my Facebook fan page. So I'm on Twitter and I have a Tumblr page also. But Twitter's a little limited, 140 characters. And on my fan page, there's I have behind the scene photos of Point Break, photos from the Rizzolian Isles I just did. So it's more extensive,
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to actually interact with people through Facebook than Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very personal, I think, on Twitter. But it's been great having you on the show. Really enjoyed it.
Hey, thanks for no one else calling in. We good to go here?
Yeah, we're good. Like I said, we don't normally do the show on Monday, but I think it's been a success.
Cool. Well, thanks for having a special show for me on Monday, and I really had a great time and really great questions, Neil. Really astute questions. Thanks, man.
You're welcome, and great having you on. Thank you.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Yep.
This is Danny Trejo, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. Keep listening, or I'll take your head.